The murder trial for the so-called doomsday cult mom is back underway this morning in Idaho, expected to last 10 weeks in total. Lori Vallow's case has really stunned the nation since we first learned about it in 2019. And the details are gruesome, tragic, and they're bizarre. So we wanted to take a closer look this morning at some of the key players in this very complicated case.
Hi, Dad.
Hello.
Are you okay? The house right now?
Yeah.
Lori Vallow Daybell, 49 years old, married 5 times, a mother of 3, accused of murdering 2 of her children and conspiring to murder her new husband's late wife. The so-called doomsday cult mom was preparing for the second coming of Jesus Christ and believed she was an exalted goddess who would lead the 144,000 people who would survive the end of times.
You think you can hide from me? Probably because you heard me say this.
Tylee Ryan, just 16 years old, daughter of Lori and Joseph Ryan, Lori's 3rd husband. She was last seen September 8, 2019 at Yellowstone National Park. 9 months later, June 9th of 2020, her body was found dismembered, burned, and buried in a shallow grave in the backyard of Chad Daybell, her mother's 5th husband. J.J. Vallow, just 7 years old, adopted son of Lori Vallow and a boy with special needs. He was last seen September 22, 2019. His body was also found near his sister's on Daybell's property and was wrapped in plastic and bound by duct tape. Chad Daybell, 54 years old, married 2 times, a father of 5. His first wife, Tammy, died at their home in Idaho October 19, 2019. She was 49 years old. At first, a coroner said Tammy died of natural causes. Then officials said her death was suspicious and her body was exhumed.
I asked her what happened to Tammy, and she says that she had a dark entity in her, and they had to do what they could to get that spirit out of her.
2 weeks later, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow get married in Hawaii on November 5th, 2019.
So she had said that Charles was already dead and that there was a demon living inside him and kind of using his body as a host, and that the demon's name was Ned Snyder.
Charles Vallow, 62 years old, Lori Vallow's 4th husband and the father of 2 children from a previous marriage. He confronted Lori, accusing her of having an affair. Then on July 11, 2019, he's shot and killed by Lori's brother, Alex Cox, who claimed the killing was in self-defense.
He was very quiet and unresponsive, and then he said, I think I'm being their fall guy.
At the age of 51, Alex Cox then died of a blood clot, December 12, 2022.
I lost a grandson. I lost a granddaughter. I lost a brother-in-law. And God, I pray for everybody every night involved in this case.
So many people impacted by the death of these 2 children and the subsequent deaths of so many others. I want to bring in Joshua Ritter now. He's a criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. He's also the host of the True Crime Daily, the Sidebar podcast. Joshua, as always, thank you. I think it's important that we take a look back at this case as we're doing this morning, because there are so many layers to it and it's confusing to follow. And then in addition to that, we're not seeing video from inside this trial as it proceeds. We're just getting audio clips each day. I want to play for folks at home one of the most recent audio clips. This is from a detective, and it really gives us some more insight into another lie that she has told. This is body cam footage that he recounts after visiting Vallow's apartment to do a welfare check on JJ. Let's take a listen.
When we addressed Chad Daybell, she referred to Chad as her brother's friend. However, at this time, number one, I had seen the 2 of them affectionate together in the parking lot of Hobby Lobby. Number two, at this time, we also knew that they had previously been married.
So Joshua, here we have yet again Lori Vallow caught in another lie, according to this detective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you pointed this out and highlighted that type of testimony, because it's really persuasive and powerful to jurors to hear from the defendant in some sort of way. I mean, they have the natural inclination to want to have her take the stand. Doubtful that that will happen in this case, but when you see things like jailhouse calls that they've already heard from, or badge cam footage that you were just referencing, it's as if the defendant is testifying. And so they get to hear in her own words, her talking about some of these really awful accusations. And in her response to her own son, she didn't have the greatest denial of her involvement. And now with this badge cam footage, we see that she's lying about the whereabouts of her children. It's very powerful and persuasive to the jurors.
And it's unknown if she will testify. It's very unlikely that she will in her own defense, but the jury will be watching her throughout the whole trial and have already done so. What are you hearing about her demeanor in court?
Yeah, that has been a lot of topics of discussion, is how is she reacting to some of this testimony? Initially, when we heard the really emotional and gruesome detailed testimony about the recovery of her children's bodies, she was described as being very stoic in court. And so there was some speculation as to how she was even responding to any of this. And that's when we famously heard her attorneys ask that she not be present through some of that testimony. But you're absolutely right that anytime something important happens in court, you're going to have 12 sets of eyes that immediately dart over towards her to see her reaction, because that's so important to them.
And I think for the jurors and also for the public watching this trial, everyone is very curious about the doomsday aspect of it and where she got these ideas to begin with, what more we know about that dark world that they purport to try to be exhuming from people's bodies. I want to play another clip. This is from a cousin of Lori's. Her name is Megan Iden, and she spoke with my colleague Ashley Banfield about the family dynamic and Lori's past. Let's take a listen.
There's just a lot of dysfunction in the entire family system. There's a lot of secrecy. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of manipulation and control. I think there's some mental illness. But, you know, by all accounts and from my own experience, I can tell you that, you know, Lori's dad has been a big factor in her personality and in the way that she has turned out. And the majority of the family system run by Barry, but underneath that, I think there was a lot of what happened was because what Lori wanted needed to get done.
So the question being here, Joshua, how did Lori become the person that she is? Do you expect the defense to strategize around this and her upbringing and others who helped create her?
I would have expected that. Now, it's important to remember that Idaho doesn't have a traditional insanity defense, but her state of mind is at issue when you're talking about premeditated murder. So they certainly could have brought up some of the aspects of how she could have been influenced by her upbringing, influenced by Chad Daybell, how that cult-like experience could have formed the person that became who she is today and standing trial for the murder of her children. But we haven't seen much of it. We expected to kind of see more through cross-examination. There's no indication as to whether or not they will call witnesses in their own defense. So it's very curious to see how the defense has played out so far, which has almost been non-existent.
Well, and in terms of witnesses, I'm curious if you think that any of the kids of Chad Daybell, which he has 5 with his late wife Tammy, will be called to the stand. What are the risks and benefits in doing that?
Again, if the intention here is to point the finger at somebody else, which I think has to be their defense, and we kind of saw a preview of that in the defense's opening statements when they talked about Alex possibly being involved, Alex Cox, her brother, perhaps Chad Daybell. So who knows? If those types of witnesses are called by the defense, I would expect that's where they start to have their defense of third-party culpability start to materialize, which we have not seen just yet, even though they've been limited to just their cross-examination. So it will be interesting to see what kind of defense they put on, if they put on a defense at all.
Yep, and it's been going very quickly, the proceedings through witness testimony so far. Very interesting and tragic every step of the way. Joshua Ritter, as always, appreciate your insight. Thank you.